Welcome back to Alchemist Camp. Today is lesson 2 and we're going to make a script. This is just going to count the number of words in a file. So maybe if you're writing a blog post and your blogging software doesn't count the words for you, or if you've just got a few notes in notepad.exe and you want to count the number of words, we can build our own tool to do it. So let's get started. Full screen it and make a new file called wordcount.exs. Note that the other files we made before were .ex and now we have a .exs. This is an Elixir script. It's a little different from a normal Elixir program. We're not compiling a module. In fact, we don't even need a module. We're just going to run the lines in this script one at a time, imperatively, like you would with a Perl script or a Ruby script or a shell script. And yeah, so first thing, since we're not going to deal with command line arguments, we're going to ask the user for the name of the file that we want to count the words from. So we'll put that in file name, and we'll use io.get, just as we did last time. File to count the words from, and io.puts file name. Okay, we'll open the shell with control tilde as usual, and we can just run this from the command line with Elixir. So remember last time we did Elixir V for version. You can just type in the name of the script you want to execute after Elixir and it'll do it. So word count.exs, and let's count the words from itself. Not that it's counting anything yet. Okay, it looks pretty good, but we have a problem. I typed in word count.exs, then I hit return, and it counted the return, or it captured the return in the file name. We don't want that in the file name, so we're going to use string.trim just like we did last time. Now this is a little bit ugly, to type string.trim and then have parentheses around the whole thing like that. There's another syntax we can use that works with any Elixir function. It is called the pipeline syntax. The way it works is you take the first argument out of the function, and we're actually going to use parentheses on the io.gets because otherwise it'll be ambiguous what part of the line goes to the io.gets. Then we use this pipe greater than, kind of looks like an arrow symbol, which is called the pipeline operator. And we pipe whatever is returned by io.gets to string.trim. And you can see we no longer have this extra space, or this extra carriage return. So that went well. Next is, I'm going to hit Control-Shift-Enter to open a line before where the cursor was. Next is we want to read the contents of the file into a variable we'll call body. If you look at the documents that I mentioned last time, you'll see that there are a bunch of ways you can read a file. We're going to use file.readBang. And this one crashes if it can't open the file. The reason we're doing that is because this script has one job, and that's to count the words in a file. If you can't even open the file and read from it, well, there's not really much point in continuing the script. So we'll do that, and now we'll io.inspect. Inspect is like it's like putString, except it gives you a bit more information. It's actually the same thing that you see in IEX when you look at things. io.inspect body. All right. And there we go. We just get everything from the file. Now you may notice it's all scrunched together into one long string. That's not exactly the best look. We can fix that with string.split. We use the pipeline operator again. Whoops. There we go. And now we can see we've got a list of a whole bunch of strings. Now these aren't exactly words. Like I would definitely say io.gets open paren file to count the words from. This is not all just one word. So our split is not perfect. By default, string.split splits on white space. What we want to do is split on anything that's not a word. So to do that, we're going to use something called regular expression. So words equals this io.inspect words. Now instead of just string.split, we're going to give it a second argument. Remember, body is the first argument. Actually, I'll just change the syntax back so that it is clear for you. Body, and second argument is what we're going to split on. You may remember from lesson 1 we used the sigil s to delimit a string with things other than quotes. So you could start a string with a brace and end it on a closing brace. You could do it with brackets or slashes or a whole bunch of different things. Same is true with regular expressions. This is tilde-r. Traditionally, they're written this way. I prefer to write them like this because we very rarely want to match for opening and closing braces, so it's just convenient. But slashes get used quite a bit. So regular expression has a whole bunch of rules, a whole bunch of matchers. One of them is \w. This matches word characters. Oops. So this will match on any word character. You may guess that's not what we want, because if you split a string on every single word character, then we're going to end up with not much left. Like all we've got here is a carriage return, some comma or colon, backslash, stuff like that. However, in Regex, you can put something in brackets and put a caret in front of it, and that will say not whatever the thing is. So here we're going to match on not white space or not word characters. So we're splitting on just about everything that's not a word character. Now we've got some empty strings here, and that's because we have multiple non-word characters in a row. For example, after file name, we have a space, we have an equals, we have another space. So we can change the rule in the regular expression to match. See, this plus makes it so it matches one or more, and it gets as many as it can. So that means this will simultaneously match these three and then split the string on them. So those three are gone, and then it'll split the string on this one period, and then it'll match these two non-word characters, and so forth. I forgot to save the file. Much better. In fact, this looks pretty much fine. So let's give it a harder challenge. Let's have it go through greeter from last time. Okay, this has some problems. So what and s should be the same word. Problem is, apostrophes are not word characters, so they're getting split on. Another problem is this n here. It split on the backslash, but even though n is a word character, we really wanted to split on the backslash n because we don't want that as a word. So, and then it's also got split up down here. So we've got to make a few tweaks. Okay, this is where regular expressions can get a little ugly, and we don't want to get too carried away, but I will continue a little bit further just so you can get a flavor for what's possible with them. And then if you ever want to, you can go to an online Regex tutorial, or maybe I'll write one, and you can dig in a bit deeper. So with the regex, if you have thing 1 and thing 2 in parentheses like this with a vertical bar separating them, this becomes one whole chunk that's matched anytime, or this whole chunk matches against thing 1 or thing 2. And if we put a plus after it, then it would match against any number of thing 1s and thing 2s, and they could be alternating or mixed up, or just thing 1s or just thing 2s. It'll match any number of thing 1s and thing 2s. So we want to do that up here. Our thing 2 is the non-word characters that we've already got up there. And our thing 1 is going to be /n. Unfortunately, this backslash has a meaning in regex. Like the \w is a word character. \n is, as you might expect, a new line. We actually want to match against the literal string \n. So to do that, you escape the backslash with the backslash. So \\/ will match against an actual backslash. So this whole thing will match against the \n that's in our greeter file here. And we can run that to verify. All right, the \n is gone. We still have the apostrophe problem. So that's actually pretty easy to fix. So we said we're matching against anything that's not a word character. We're going to say anything that's not a word character or an apostrophe. So it has to be not word character, not apostrophe. Then this chunk will match. Save that. Okay, and it looks like everything's fine. We'll try running it once more on itself just to make sure nothing has gone awry, although I think this is correct. Oh, we do have one more little problem. We have an empty string at the end. We want to get rid of that. The way you do that is actually pretty simple. There is an enum filter that will get rid of all the items in an enumerable that match some criteria. And enumerable is a module in the Elixir standard library, and every single list is enumerable, so you can use enumerable things on lists. So we can just pipe this into enum.filter. Filter takes a function as an argument. You give it a function that tells it what should be what counts as catching in the filter, and we're going to define an inline function here. It's a little different than the other functions, but it's the same idea. In fact, we'll do one in IEX first. We'll just call this one double. Fn is the syntax for it. Fn x arrow x times 2 end. That's a function. Oh, I wasn't in IEX. Hang on. Fn x times 2 end. Okay, we've got a function. I should name the function something so that we can reference it. So double equals fn x times 2 and we can call it just like any other function, except that we have to use dot here. So double dot open paren 5 10. That's pretty simple. And the filter function that we want is we'll just call it not empty, is going to be like this: function of x, and it returns true if x is equal to an empty string. So x equals empty string. This will return true if it's an empty string, and it will actually, let's just call this empty, and it will return false if it's not an empty string. Empty. That's not empty. That is empty. I'm going to put this in our filter, and we'll just inline it right here. Fn x equals empty string, end. Function goes right there like that, and we'll get out of IEX. And we got nothing. That's not right. Did I get this wrong? I think I did get it backwards. So we want to filter when it's not an empty string. There we go. And we've gotten rid of the empty string. So there used to be one more comma empty string there. This is getting to be like a little bit long of a line. So one thing you can do to clean it up using this this pipeline syntax is we can just put each of these on a separate line. We can put we can put it like that, and now it's a little bit cleaner. Whoops. All right, yeah, the shell was not the easiest to work with there. We've got this, and the last thing we need to do is we need to get the count of the words. So we'll just call this count. Hit Control Enter to go to the next line here. And Enum.count will count the number of items in a list. I'll give you an example in IEX. So we'll just have an arbitrary list. We'll call things equals cat, dog, car, vegetable. Okay, so that's 4 things, pretty easy to count. We inspect the things, and you'll notice it says it's a list, and implemented protocols includes enumerable. So we can use enum.count on things, and there are 4. So we'll go up here, and we've got count. So we start with the whole body here. We split it into words using this crazy regular expression. Then we filter out the empty ones, and then we just count the number of elements are left over, and then we print that out. So it's pretty straightforward, and we are done. Pretty amazing. Now, let's recap. In this lesson, we have messed around a bunch with a script, moving things up and down. We saw from IEX, you can execute what's in a script using code.loadFile and then the name of it. We've opened a file and read from it. We've brushed on regular expressions. I think it was just enough to give you both an idea of the power of them and also how they can get out of control really quickly, and you can get yourself in trouble if you get too into them. We saw filter, we saw an anonymous function here, and we looked at count and filter, both from the enumerable protocol. So that is pretty much a wrap. There are a couple things you can do to improve this. You can give the user an option to count the number of lines in the file and an option to count the number of characters in the file. So your challenge, should you choose to accept it, is extend this script so the user can count not just the number of words, but so they can choose the number of words, the number of characters, or the number of lines. And it's okay to use io.gets or stuff like that, because we haven't gone over how to do command line arguments. There is a better way to do all of this using mix and escript, which we'll get into in a future lesson, but I think there's a lot of value in just seeing how stuff works in its simplest state without messing with a whole bunch of the tooling before you feel comfortable with what you're working on. So that's it for today. Thanks for sticking around. If you haven't yet, you gotta subscribe to YouTube so that you keep getting more lessons in the future. And until next time, code on.